Now, voters in the United States of Iowa have kicked off the process of electing America's next president. In the upset of the night, Texas Senator Ted Cruz won an outright victory on the Republican side. He got 28% of the vote, beating billionaire Donald Trump, as you can see there, who got just 24%. Florida Senator Marco Rubio came in third, about a point behind Trump. Meanwhile, former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, he did poorly, finishing down in sixth place. Now, on the Democrat side, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton remained locked in a virtual tie with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders until the final hour. Clinton is ahead by less than 0.3 of a percentage point. Now, the top candidates are now immediately off to New Hampshire for the next vote on February the 9th. After that is Super Tuesday in March, when the greatest number of states select delegates to national conventions, where each party's presidential candidates are officially nominated. Well, Charlie Wells joins us now from London. He's a reporter and editor at the Wall Street Journal. Charlie, thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you there. How surprising then are last night's results?
Certainly. I think for Trump, this is trouble. Donald Trump has built his campaign off this idea that he can sort of build, a huge coalition of excited fans who he can then convert into excited voters who will actually come out to the polls. And what we saw last night in Iowa is that that didn't necessarily happen. He certainly did attract a number of voters, but it wasn't enough to beat Ted Cruz. I think, Donald Trump is going to struggle throughout the rest of the campaign to sort of build on that idea that he, as sort of an outsider candidate, can continue to meet the message that he's been portraying.
So, I mean, that's interesting. How do you think Donald Trump then will respond? Will he ramp up the rhetoric, or will he sort of change tactics after this result in Iowa, do you think?
I think a classic Donald Trump move would be to ratchet up that rhetoric. He is in somewhat of a favorable position going into New Hampshire. New Hampshire is, a predominantly white state with working class voters who tend to rally around Donald Trump. Donald Trump is also from the region, and New Hampshire tends to sort of treat people from that sort of New England, northeastern region more favorably than outsiders. But I think, based on past behavior, skipping debates, taking to task members of the media, after attention seems to be moving away, polls seem to be slipping, we should expect the unexpected from the Trump campaign.
And how surprising is it on the other side that Hillary Clinton has a genuine challenger for the Democratic nomination? And not only that, how surprising is it that it's Bernie Sanders?
Right, I think a year ago, no one would have really seen this coming. For months, the Clinton campaign didn't take the Sanders candidacy very seriously. And what we saw was that that campaign was able to marshal a lot of excited young voters in some of the more liberal enclaves of Iowa. But again, like the Trump candidacy, what we saw is this outsider candidate able to get a number of people to the polls, but not a huge mass of voters that will be necessary to really win the campaign. And I should also note that Iowa demographically is somewhat of an outlier in the United States. So it's in the center of the country. It's a smaller state. 90% of the voters there are white, as opposed to 70% within the United States nationally. So the national vote is a lot more diverse. And that's a place where someone like Sanders had a significant advantage. He'll have a tougher time in states like South Carolina that are coming down the line.
Well, you've led me nicely on to my next question, which was about Iowa and last night's results. Do we get too excited about Iowa? Can we actually read too much into what happened last night?
Iowa, when it comes to nominating contests, especially on the right, is sort of a weird place. In the past couple of primaries, it actually has not picked the eventual nominee for the Republican Party. So within the past couple of contests, it picked Mike Huckabee, an ultra-conservative from Arkansas, Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania, who's also more of a conservative candidate, and those two ultimately didn't go on to win the nomination. And Ted Cruz very much fits into that category. say he is an ultra-conservative, one of the most conservative senators in the United States Senate. He comes from an evangelical background and tends to do very well with evangelical voters, and he's more of a retail politician. So he made a point of visiting 99 of Iowa's counties and really kind of pushing the flesh with a lot of Iowa voters. And so while he certainly did well there, Iowa does not have a precedent for predicting what the rest of the campaign will look like.
Okay, Charlie Wells, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your insight.